All right, let's get the microphone testing out of the way a little early today. Let me know if you can hear me across the various chats. We have Twitch, YouTube, and X.com going right now. And for the best experience, if you can hear me, I do suggest that you head on over to the YouTube stream. It's much higher quality than the other streams. Pushing out the same bitrate to all. It's just how they handle it on their end. But if you can, go ahead and let me know in the various chats if you can hear my voice okay. I'm fairly certain you can hear the music. I will be turning that down in just a moment, and we will get rolling here in just a moment as well. All right, let's get the music under control here, and we're going to get rolling. Nice price action to start out this Monday morning. Well, Monday afternoon for many, still Monday morning for me. Late Monday for some. All right. Just going to get the music off on my side. We're going to roll right into this. Hello and welcome to Landy's Crypto Corner. Today is May 20th, 2024, and we are doing a Macro Mondays here on Landy's Crypto Corner across the various streams. This is, of course, a live stream. If you are watching this after the fact, I do suggest that you watch the first parts of most live streams, as that's where I'm going to do the bulk of the Bitcoin TA. And I do want to welcome those of you who are regulars here for the TA live streams, as well as many in the ordinals communities, of course, that being New Bitcoin Order, Pepe Ordinals Maxis, Sigmas, and Nat Monkeys. Thanks for coming through. You guys always, guys and gals, sorry, always show up in force. So we're going to take a look at Bitcoin on the 5-day and 4-day. We're going to follow up with where we left off last week because we did have major closures coming in over the weekend with the weekly candle. Now we can see that we have gotten further compression here on the 5-day chart. And this is very encouraging considering what Bitcoin is doing in terms of price action as well. So we can see that we had the beautiful expansion after a slight bit of compression and a tag of the basis band here on the 5-day chart. Now, of course, this was the prior spike low directly into that monthly at 38.5. It only missed that 38.5 monthly by $1. Or in fact, I believe it might have even been 38.501. I don't even recall at this point, but we saw the beautiful expansion to the upside. We have now seen the consolidation, for quite a while now. We've been going in this consolidation for, a couple months. I believe it was 60 days or so after it put in the lower high, but since the higher high, it's been quite a while. In this case, we have now seen a nice compression of the Bollinger Bands here. So we got the nice expansion of the Bollinger Bands, and we got the, of course, equal reaction in the expansion to the downside of the Bollinger Bands because price volatility is ticking up during those periods. And now we are seeing rather the actual compression phase. So this is starting to get ready for its next move. Now, where will it begin its next move, or at least start to show that it's going to get re-expansion, that being either to the upside or downside? It's pretty easy and pretty clear. Right now, if Bitcoin can close the next 5-day or any subsequent 5-day thereafter above the upper second standard deviation, wherever that is coming in, it's currently coming in at $75,000. Basically, it's 74,835, but that's about $1,000 above the prior all-time high, which was set this year at 73,835. Now, if Bitcoin continues to trade up, get above the upper first standard deviation on the daily and lower term timeframes relative to this 5-day time frame, that would be above the upper first standard deviation. We will see the upper second slightly adjust up. That is where I'm getting $75,000 from. Now, that, of course, is because I have a lot of experience using these, as this is kind of the main source of volatility levels of interest for my analysis. Now, the upper first is currently at 69,735. As Bitcoin moves towards it, you're going to see it probably head up to around $70,000. So if Bitcoin starts to trade above there, we will see the beginnings of expansion on the 5-day time frame. It's already showing the etchings of this expansion. We do have BBWP at a 4% over a 3% where the moving average is. So we are starting to see this expansion as Bitcoin did close up above the basis band here. Now, of course, the basis band is the 20 simple, and the 20 SMA is where we then define the standard deviations away from it. To the upside, we have the first, second, and third, and then to the downside, the first, second, and third. Now, I did mention that it's pretty clear when this is going to begin the next expansion phase. If Bitcoin can close anywhere in the next 5-day candle above the upper second standard deviation, well, if it's closing above there, it would also be closing on a breakout of the all-time high here at 73,835, thus giving us some deeper targets. Now, initially, I'm looking at the upper second standard deviation at around $75,000 to $78,000 as a range. You can see that the 5-day is offering up a little bit more. We could see a what I call price replace band if we did see a closure above the upper second, and that is where we actually have targets as high as $80,000. Now, I would be a little bit more conservative around the all-time high and a little bit higher between 75 and 78, and then kind of use that 78 to 80 as a range. Above there, of course, I'm looking at mid to low 80s, and we come back to it for some further targets to the upside. Now, to the downside, because that is always a possibility, we cannot just take for granted that things are going to be bullish and rise, but, although things look very, very good right now, we do need to know that anywhere below the lower first standard deviation, which is coming in at 59,500 now, we would need to see a breakdown below the wick lows to even head towards the lower second standard deviation, which is currently coming in at 54,430 or so. So that would look like losing the last higher low on the daily, basically, which is at 60,150 here on spot price, and then heading down to that lower low at 56,500. It would then have to break down below there and start closing below the lower second standard deviation to kick off expansion. Now, I will tell you that is not a prime setup for you bears. So if you are bearish, that's actually a really, really tough one. You would actually want to see further compression, rejections at the upper standard deviations, and then an expansion down. But then again, you're expanding right into support. So it's probably not the best time to be bearish. Now, in the shorter term timeframes, there probably are going to be some bear plays based on the increasing volatility that's happening on those shorter term timeframes. But in this case, if you're bearish, you might want to wait for a good setup. And right now, this 5-day is not favoring you. So that is to say, when price is moving at you, you might want to get out of the way. Now, in this case, the 5-day, it did just close open with the weekly candle. So let's go ahead and take a look at the momentum pivot. We can see that that is now coming in at 65,900. So in the next 4 days and how many hours we got? 4 days and 7 hours. As long as we're seeing Bitcoin maintain above that momentum pivot, we will see momentum shift back to the upside. Of course, this is just another higher low on a closing basis. So we have, we did get a deviation lower low close, right? But even in the 5 day relative to what was happening here, there was swing lows, but there wasn't really any kind of closing lows set. You can consider this maybe a closing low. This was more of a consolidation high to a higher low rather, and then a nice bounce off the basis, then up, up and away. Nice closing high structure, nice consolidation closing high structure to a nice consolidation closing low structure. So it's still just really clean high and low structure. Yes, there was, a swing down trend going on here on the 5 day and of course even the weekly, but in terms of closes, very, very clean, looking very, very good. Now there is bullish divergence to be had on this particular low being set. The last, man, I'm going to have trouble with my voice again this week, huh? The last low that was set was this guy over here. Actually, there is no bullish divergence. We were on a higher low structure for the RSI here. So my mistake there. Maybe it was the weekly. We'll have to double check here. Now, what I do want you to note is another thing here. RSI is ready possibly to cross over the simple moving average closing here or higher or above its pivot, especially. I would call it around $66,000. We're looking at, yeah, $66,000 is a safe number. So in the next 5 day closure, you see it closing above $66,000. We're also going to kick off another signal on RSI. This moving average is a 12 period SMA, and crossing over it and closing over it would be at above where price is trading now at around $68,000 coming into the next 5 day closure. But anywhere above 66, as we will see the moving average continue down slightly, even if the candle closes green. I would say that the momentum pivot likely going to line up in that $66,000 area in terms of the SMA here, in conjunction with the confluence going on with the actual stoke momentum down here. So looking very, very encouraging there for the bulls. Very, very good. We are, again, we're looking at compression, and in the context of a bull market, which we are in, I would be looking for this expansion to occur to the upside. That is my bias currently, obviously because of structure and trend, as well as support and resistance. Bitcoin playing very, very well with support and resistance from the prior cycle. So, the primary overhead resistance right now, Bitcoin just tapped. I'd mentioned last week around $68,000 to $70,000 is going to be the next overhead resistance above 67.2 to 3. Prior to that, it was 65.5. Excuse me. So we can also see that the upper first standard deviation on the 5 days right there at around that $70,000. So 68 to 70 above there. Bitcoin's running the highs and higher, likely to around $75,000 to $78,000. When we look at the weekly, we can see that Bitcoin really hasn't even tapped on the basis band just yet. It did reach down towards it, but now this is another thing that bears need to be aware of. Even if Bitcoin were to put in a lower high, one, structurally, it wouldn't be great on the weekly, but the basis is right there at the main downside support area between the October 2021 monthly close there at 61,350 down to the March monthly and quarterly at around 58.8 to $59,000. Excuse me, just 1 second. Let me take a sip of some water here. Ooh, that wasn't water. That was coffee. I forgot I put coffee in that mug. Ooh, that's some jet fuel in there. All right, so weekly looks really good. We have the closing high structure up here, and came down, nice higher low close. We did get the higher low close confirmation. Now, the additional criteria, and I did mention this last week as well, is that we need to see a close above this wick high at 67,300 or so. That has all of this week to do this. So above there on a close, and I'm looking for continuation, right to where Bitcoin is and the highs and higher. You can see that the upper second standard deviation above the actual highs here coming in at, again, $80,000, just like the 5 day. So Above the highs, I would keep it conservative initially and watch price. 75 to 78, 78 to 80 are still going to be some of the main areas that I'm looking for. Wicks through, perfectly normal. That's mid to low 80s is where I'd be looking. If it just kind of blasts off, we do have like a $90,000 target coming in on a fib up there as well. And, I do want to note again, upper first standard deviations coming in at around $70,000 rather. So above there, we're looking at the highs and higher, 75, 78, 78 to 80. And, again, any kind of moves back to the downside, as long as Bitcoin is remaining above the basis on the weekly, it's bullish. We are not in a compression to expansion phase. One of the things I do want to call out on the weekly is it is a little bit different than the look that we're seeing on the 5-day. So you can see that BBWP is still in a big cool down. So this is telling me that at least initially, even if Bitcoin does break its highs and start to initiate expansion on something like a 5-day and a 4-day and a 3-day and all that stuff, it's going to get aggressive to the upside relative to those timeframes. But until we actually see the cool down occur on the weekly, and then we get BBWP even up over the moving average, I'm kind of looking for things to take their time, find some resistance up and around there. On any kind of a move up, you can see that the Bollinger Bands are pretty spread out, but it can, from the weekly perspective, walk the Bollinger Bands up. So if we did see a closure, for instance, on the weekly above the upper second, we will see BBWP move up. It's just going to take longer to get that more aggressive expansion of the Bollinger Bands relative to price volatility. So I would not be surprised to find, even if Bitcoin's making new higher highs on the lower term timeframes and even the weekly, that it kind of walks its way up, level by level. That's why I'm being a little bit more conservative when I'm saying 75 to 80 and then 78 to 80 and then mid to low 80s, because Bitcoin technically can even move up to around $90,000. Now, it would still need to get at minimum from where it's positioned right now in terms of BBWP and the moving average. It would probably take like a week or two to actually initiate that price volatility expansion relative to the bands and start walking things up towards the $100,000 target and maybe even beyond. So, really aggressive upside, at least initially. If Bitcoin just starts roaring to the upside, it takes out 75 to 78, takes out that $80,000 region where the upper second on the 5-day and weekly are. I'm looking mid to low 80s initially, and then anywhere above 85, I'm really looking for around $90,000, which is the current upper third standard deviation on the weekly. I wouldn't be looking directly to $100,000, although that is a possibility. I kind of think it might just start walking its way up. That's at least what it's starting to look like right now. Now, if Bitcoin can close this weekly anywhere above 68,220, I would call it 68.3, and especially above the upper first standard deviation, we will see a beautiful cross back up in the context of the bullish control zone for momentum here on Stoke. Nice little cool down, that kind of stuff looks really good. Then I'd be looking for that possibly coming in at the end of this week, towards the end of the month. That would still be an initial cross back to the upside, but if you do see an initial cross, what then happens? Typically, you're going to see that momentum pivot move right back to the low side structure. I'd be looking somewhere around 61.5 to 62, and as low as the 57 to $58,000 region. So we will have to wait for that coming in this weekend, and of course it's a long week, so a lot can happen in between now and then. Bitcoin's primary upside resistance right now is 68 to 70 though, and that's pretty darn clear. Gets above there, it's likely running the high side structure, 70 to 73, and then the all-time high and higher is where I'd be looking, $835 from 73K on the upper end of this is not a lot to ask. And then of course above there, we can start looking towards this daily also giving us the the bias here, that above, the upper second, which is currently coming in, it's moving because it's reacting live to price, but $68,000 to $70,000 region. If it's walking it up towards that prior cycle high at $69,000. Now, above there, I'd be looking for moves, initially to test this structure here, 70 to 73 on the wick there. The wick, to be fair, was just shy of 73, but we could see it head up and try to tag 73 on the all-time high close open up here. And then it's not a lot to ask to run the highs and a little bit higher initially and then come back to it in the lower term time frames. Now, what does Bitcoin need to do to maintain this move? Well, as it currently stands, there was no high put in here. This was a swing structure, but it's like a swing high to a swing low. You do want to see, for immediate upside, you want to see Bitcoin hanging out on the daily upper first on its lows. So basically, daily lows, you want to see maintaining the daily upper first standard deviation of the Bollinger Bands here. That's currently coming in around $66,000. Now, we could see it dip down below. That's where you want to see the April of 2021 monthly swing high coming in at around $65,000. Hold up. At worst, for this particular move, it just wouldn't be immediate upside. We could see things safely come down somewhere around the basis. It's coming in at 63.3 to 63,500 on these wicks. But if that is lost, it's danger zone. Because if Bitcoin starts heading back down towards the October of 2021 monthly, coming in at 61,350 down to the lower first, it cannot close below, or it's going to break structure again to the downside in this case. The uptrending structure, if my voice can hold together here, the uptrending structure is basically that wick low at 60,150 to this lower first. If you see things mean revert all the way back there, it's not looking very good for the bulls. Likely going to, at minimum, be a longer form consolidation. And at worst, it's, starting to look like a breakdown to run those lower lows again. So as long as Bitcoin's above, at this particular moment on a close, 60,800 to 60,150, things are looking really good. That could change depending on, what this structure looks like. If you're looking at swing structure for immediate moves to the upside, you need to see around $66,000 to $65,000 hold up on a close open. Currently, it is up and to the right. And, Bitcoin can kind of grind its way out up here too, as, we do see the increase in BBWP. So we are getting a nice move to the upside, giving us that bias that this is looking like continuation at minimum today into tomorrow. I'm seeing a lot of funny faces being posted in the chats over there. I don't know what's going on. But let's go ahead and look at a few very nice things happening on some lower term timeframes as well. Now, it's fair to say that there could be a cool down in some of these lower term timeframes, but some of them are still just rolling. So we can see that near term on the 12-hour, the $68,000 upper second standard deviation on the daily, and then the $70,000 overhead resistance by the upper second standard deviation on the 12-hour is kind of the primary overhead. I've mentioned this quite a few times, but I want to show you how I got to that. We can tell, obviously, prior cycle all-time high is $69,000. $68,000 is the daily upper second. The 12-hour upper second is going to be around $70,000. So primary overhead resistance for the 12-hour continuation to the upside on any closures above 65,800. But you'd like to, again, see things closing above $66,000 to 66,300 or so. That is the close open low that is trying to be set right now. Nice swing structure, swing higher low structure. Anything for the 12-hour that you start seeing close back around, as it stands right now, anything that loses like 64.5, probably going to head down. That's the basis, and this wick low below what was just tested as support, which was the April of 2021 monthly swing high. Any closes below there, and we then start having to look down to the left here, where we have that 63.2 to 300 to 63.5 on the wicks. Below there, danger, look out, structure breaks come on any closures below $61,000 for the 12-hour. But that's obviously not the first thing I'm looking for, but you do need to be aware of it. The 12-hour looks really good, really healthy, really strong, nice uptrend. I would expect this to continue. And, a lot of people are going to look at the 12-hour Stoke and they're going to say it's pinned to the top side. It is overbought. But recall, this is a regular Stoke. So this is measuring close over close price action momentum, not a Stoke RSI, which measures the velocity of RSI. If you're already using an RSI, you don't need a Stoke RSI. Use a regular Stoke to gauge close over close price action momentum. And we can see 68,300 is now going to be the momentum pivot. But if Bitcoin is going to remain in the strong half of the bands, closing somewhere, above $66,000 on the 12-hour coming into the next few days, I'd be looking for this momentum to kind of hang out in the bullish half of the momentum oscillator, or Stoke oscillator in this case, and then continue to get like bullish resets. That's what I'd be looking for. It's not necessarily a bad thing what we see happening right now, including the cool down that's occurring right now. It's a bullish cool down. Bitcoin is holding above the upper first standard deviation. I would like to see, if it does start to recover up here, I want to see it holding and then getting a nice recompression of the Bollinger Bands, nice cool down in BBWP. We could be seeing that coming up shortly if Bitcoin kind of hangs out and goes sideways at resistance. That's not necessarily a bad thing as long as it's holding its structure and or at minimum, again, $65,000 to $66,000 is what I want to see hold in order to maintain my bullish bias to keep testing higher. Now, looking at something like a 4-hour, look at this. This is actually really encouraging. So we saw the beautiful compression to expansion down into support. We saw the lower second standard deviation expansion, rejection at the upper first, which is typically where you see on expansion in the expansion phase, the upper first and or the lower first, depending on direction. So if it's downside expansion, the upper first to even the upper second on a wick starts closing above the upper second, it starts changing structure, as you can see just to the right here. But usually rejections around the upper first, especially when they're below the high that needs to be recovered, are usually pretty bearish to go back down and start retesting the lows. We did see that on the 4-hour. Nice bounce off the lower second after expansion. So we got the expansion where it was closing below the lower second, bounce and rejection at the upper first, and then a tap or retest of the lower second. Then it slowly went sideways, popped up, and closed above the upper second standard deviation. That was very important and gave me the bias that on any move back down to support, we were likely looking at a retest, and that's exactly what we got. Started holding support around the lower first in this case. So we started to see things change, not only in with bullish divergences and lower term time frame trends, but we also had a retest of the structural lows over here into support. This retest was a big area where I took out a very large swing position. Initial profit taking on that was happening around the overhead resistances, right? I even refilled some of that swing on the spike back down here into support and the hold of that. And, it's been up and to the right. So I wanted to kind of point this out because I've had questions about, how do you gauge this stuff? Well, we had expansion down into support. We had a nice bounce and then rejection, and then we tagged or retested that expansion phase. We didn't continue the expansion phase. We retested. If we were going to continue, we were going to break down below the low. So that would be one criteria, which it held. When you start looking into this price action down here, expansion, and then the retest of the lower second without closing below. Also, it would have needed to meet the criteria of breaking down and closing below this low, while also closing below the lower second standard deviation. So there was an area for a deviation down here around that lower second. didn't even try for it, just spiked into it, started to crawl its way back up, and then recover specifically above the upper second standard deviation on a close, came back down for that beautiful, beautiful retest. And that beautiful, beautiful retest came in around the lower first. So in this case, when we were expanding down, we rejected the upper first and then came back down and tagged the lower first again, or a lower second. But then we recovered and turned around and started closing above the upper second, and then used the lower first, which is going to be your support zone that you look for. And after closing above, in this case, the upper second standard deviation, somewhere between the basis and lower first is a strong area, especially coming into support, and a retest of that area as support. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. So what did we need to see then? Well, we needed to see Bitcoin start closing back above this high here, which it had previously rejected. So everybody got super bearish because it rejected it and it was a lower high on the 4-hour. This is going to go down and, going to go down and bring all the bulls to Clown Town. Well, it didn't, because it was starting to shift in terms of volatility and trend. In this case, what did it need to do? It needed to close above this high and close above, which would be above this rejected high over here, and then get expansion to the upside. And that's exactly what we saw. This was a very, very easy play. And if you were paying very close attention to your charts here, and the methodology that I've shown many of you for years, for those of you that have been around for years, hanging out with me in various servers or in various TA channels, this was the actual setup for the longer term timeframes, because this led into a 12-hour bullish divergence as well, which, to be fair, did play out the inverted head and shoulders. We have actually hit the target on that as well. I don't need to show you that. You can go and look at that one for yourself if you like. I'm not a pattern trader. I'm a volatility trader. And what do we see occurring here? Well, we saw the beautiful expansion to the upside on the 4-hour. We saw the expansion past the upper second and even the upper third. And then started playing around in the strong half. Didn't even come down to the basis. Started playing around the strong half of the Bollinger Bands here around the upper first, kind of walking price up. Came back down, tried to hold support on the basis, went into compression, came down and tested the lower first as support, got walked up, closing right by the basis. We got beautiful, beautiful compression, and we are seeing re-expansion now. So this is actually pretty much already well underway. I mean, we have BBWP at a 20 over the SMA there, sitting at a 9%. What does that mean? Well, that means that this is just starting to get rolling from the 4-hour perspective, which is telling us that Bitcoin does want to test up further into the $68,000 to $70,000 area. And if it starts to breach above $70,000, that's where we're looking for a more aggressive move to the upside towards those highs, 70 to 73. If it starts taking that all-time high, then we're looking 75 to 78. This can happen quickly, especially if this is going to be kind of the kickoff week. We would want to see it starting to really occur on this 4-hour, bleed that into the 6-hour. Let's go ahead and take a look at the 6-hour. In fact, we see the same look here. We see expansion off of the support side here, which, by the way, was an expansion retest again. This was so bullish. We saw the compression after the lower low was put in, tried to recover, the $65,000, spiked through it, couldn't get it, came back down on expansion to the downside into support, but we got the expansion and even threatened expansion again, but it was blunted immediately within the support zone here, because it had room all the way to around $58,800 to $59,000. It didn't even bother to take it. Started to try and recover to the upside, tapping that upper second standard deviation, and then just deviating the actual Bollinger Band basis here on the 6-hour, and then setting and confirming this as a higher low and a retest of this support structure down here. What a beautiful play. Nice expansion to the upside, walking on that upper first standard deviation. It starts to pass price action. It rejects it, heads down, taps on the basis, and then it's already initiated its expansion to the upside. So beautiful expansion to compression. And it is expanding right into overhead resistance. So again, you can see the upper third is likely going to end up around that $70,000 region. We do need to start seeing that close above there in the next 6-hour candle. So this 6-hour candle just closed. Of course, this is painting, painting a little bit of a conflicting picture because we don't have the moving average up just yet, but the 4 hour is pretty darn clear. If the 4 hour does continue like this, we're going to see this test further up into the highs. So at least local resistance 68 to 70, and then above there, the highs and higher. And that is going to do it for the bulk of my Bitcoin analysis today. I'm sure that you do want to see one more thing, and that is likely you want to see like, hey, is there any other confluences for this gobbledygook that you're saying? Well, yes, there is, in fact. If we were to pull this structure, fib structure, we can see that well above where the upper second is, which is coming in around that $80,000 region. That's where we're starting to look to, mid to low 80s in between the upper second and upper third, up to the 1272, which is coming in just around that $90,000 by the upper third. Above there, we're looking to around the 1414 locally, from the 95 to $96,000, and then $100,000 to $110,000 is the 1618 up there. Now that's not necessarily going to be the fib pull that you're going to see from most. You're probably going to see this one, which is from the actual drawdown or the correction, and this is where you can get some pretty confluent targets. I'm looking again 75 to around this 1272 by the weekly upper second standard deviation, which is coming in around 80. That'd be your 78 to 80 target. Above there, the mid to low $80,000 region, and that's where we have the 414. So it could get swung, but this is coming in at around $82,500 to $83,000, depending on which exchange you are pulling the fib on. Above there, we're looking to around the deeper half in where the 1618 is coming in, deeper $80,000, around $88,000, to around $90,000, where the 1786 is coming in by the weekly upper third. Could it blast off above there? Absolutely. Start pushing into the mid to low 90s through the 1888 at 93.5, and the two spot coming in just over $96,000. And we have the 272, which is a nice area to look at around $100,000 to $103,000. And then directly above there, we have a very important area when doing a bear fib pullback or correction pullback, whether it's a bear or a bull. You're going to look at that 2414. That's going to be the big one, and it's about $108,000, we'll call it. That is going to be a big area to watch, around $100,000 to $108,000, maybe even 110, pushing that 2618 on a wick or something. But initially, I would be looking around that $100,000 region. And, there's a lot of really confluent stuff going on here when looking at bands and fibs. When you look at the monthly time frame, we can see that mid to low 80s above $80,000 is the upper third standard deviation on the monthly. What I will tell you about this is if this month does close above the upper second standard deviation at 68,600, $69,000 would do it easy, right? So if it starts passing, at minimum by the end of the month around the $70,000 to $73,000 area, start pushing the highs again, even if it's not making new highs, we're likely going to see $85,000 by the upper third be a likely target. This is going to move up as well. One of the big things that you got to understand about this is Bitcoin typically, when it's in an aggressive expansion phase like this, which let me show you what I mean by that. This is aggressive expansion right now. It's even in and around where it expanded to the downside, which was the first downside expansion in Bitcoin's history on the monthly. But it's, typically on the monthly, it starts closing above the upper second and upper third. So that's where we're looking around that $90,000 region. When looking at the 2 month, again, around $70,000 to $71,000. This has got some time, right? This is when the monthly closes, we're going to be looking at the 2 month and quarterly, but you can see the upper third standard deviation coming in line with the deeper $80,000 region, a swing of that area. We're looking around $90,000. Quarterly, same kind of deal, around $90,000 by the upper third. Now we do typically see quarterlies closing above the band's basis levels on the upper third standard deviation. That's really aggressive expansion. And just to keep in mind, we haven't even confirmed the expansion on the quarterly yet. So if you are not bullish, well, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what else to tell you. If you're not bullish, then maybe get in one of the chats and explain to me why you're not. Um, I am bullish. Of course, that's all conditional, right? And just to kind of give you a good idea of how bullish Bitcoin is, even if there was some issues uh, to the downside. The last higher low on the monthly is all the way down here at $25,000 on the wick and $26,000 on the close. Okay, if you aren't bullish above the last higher low on the monthly, I mean, this thing could literally come all the way down to $53,000 to $50,000, which we have discussed before. Not a relevant target, which is why I didn't, Bitcoin's moving to the upside today, pushing some of the overhead resistances. So 50 to 53 isn't, a target that I was regularly talking about today, like previously when Bitcoin was playing on the lows as an available target if certain conditions were met, which they weren't. It could still pull all the way back there and it's fine. And wherever it puts in the next higher low would then be the criteria for a structure break. This is insanely bullish. And anyone that's been around these markets for a while, that Bitcoin's going to probably hang around its prior all-time high for a little while. This is directly in line with what it's done in the past and is normal for any market, in any market that you see it playing around the all-time highs. It's going to play around, break them, retest, that kind of thing before it starts its real blue sky move. So if you're not bullish, then I don't know what to tell you, to be quite honest. Looks good is what I'm trying to say. There's nothing wrong with any of this price action, including the correction that everybody got stupidly bearish on, calling it a triple top. I mean, this is probably going to run the highs again, and as soon as it puts in a local high on like the 5-minute chart, you're going to have people quadruple top. Oh my God. It's over. It's so over. The Fed, the traditional markets. This guy said this thing and he's got power in this country over here. Who cares? Look at your chart. It's going to tell you real-time sentiment all the time. If you're hearing things from the news, if you're reading it on Twitter or X or whatever, by the time you're hearing this, maybe X is a little bit faster because a lot of people showed their chart that was just screenshotted. But in most cases, you are the last person to know. So if you really want to gauge what's happening in the real-time markets, you watch the live auction and you break down the live auction. So understanding the live auction is going to give you insight into sentiment as it stands right now at this very moment. Anything else is just late to the party. So that's one of the big reasons why TA is so important, and understanding that there are 4 key areas. For those of you that are new to TA, the 4 key areas are very simple. It's trend. Is it an uptrend, a downtrend? Is it trendless, meaning it's making higher highs and lower lows and lower highs and higher lows, and it's in a sideways consolidation, otherwise known as a compression when you're looking at Bollinger Bands. So compression over here, right? You've got your uptrending structure, compression, uptrending structure. So trend is your friend until the end of the trend. When the trend is unclear, everyone's in fear, right? And that's one of the reasons why I like doing what I'm doing here, which is because you have to combine trend and support and resistance, because those are key historical support and resistance areas. And I got a good question the other day. It's like, okay, well, what do you do when it's just breaking out? There's no identifiable areas or historical areas when it's in a blue sky breakout. And it's like, well, okay, yeah, that's why you start looking at the lower term timeframes for where is it finding support in the auction. Where is it finding resistance in the auction? You just move to the lower term timeframes and start evaluating it that way. And you still, reference your higher term timeframes for any of the downside, even when it's in blue sky. That's where volatility becomes very, very important, because price volatility, is the next piece, right? And you have trend, support and resistance, and volatility, which is, you're going to see, if you look up volatility, it's in the context of markets, it is the dispersion of returns. But realistically, you can think of it as the violence at which a price moves in one direction or the other, or in one direction and the other, because volatility expansion is how quickly price is moving, right? So, and it can very quickly move up and then right back down. I mean, you're looking at a minute chart, and this is stupidly volatile, even up here around the 15-minute highs. But in the context of, the hourly, it's just volatility expansion to the upside, right? had beautiful volatility down as well. And this was, everybody got really bearish on this right here, which was a move back up and then a spike of the lower second and third on the 15-minute. Beautiful, beautiful support held there. And, retesting the high side of the low structure that was built down here locally, and still looking good. But that's all in the context of being above $65,000 to $66,000, right? So all of these things then give you the idea of which directional trade you should be taking on the lower term timeframes relative to your risk profile, which is how much money are you willing to put down? How much are you, how much money are you willing to risk on a particular trade? Many people, I think, get way over leveraged in these markets trying to hit big and end up getting wiped out, even on upside moves like this. Like guys who are moving, they're in 100x trades, and then they look away from the screen for, an hour or two, and then boom, it's right back in their face, took out their entire position because they weren't managing the risk properly. And risk is going to be different for every single person because it is relative to your account size and your risk tolerance. So, just bear that in mind. When you're doing TA, it is just to give you the best chance to take advantage of the price action. When you're actually trading, you need to, manage your risk well relative to what is happening on the charts and what you are charting specifically for the different moves in terms of their setups. So trading is often made hard by the people who are not following their own TA. Right? We end up getting FOMO, and it's never going to come down, and look at how much it pumped, and then it comes right back at you. Or heads in the opposite direction because maybe you didn't chart it right, or you didn't take into account what people often forget in this market is volatility. They might look at volatility and reference it like volatility is high or it's low, but they don't really know what it means. They don't know how to play it. They don't know how it's confluent with support and resistance or trend. And that's where 99.9% of traders get wrecked in not just crypto, but also in traditional markets as well. Volatility is key. Trend, support, and resistance and volatility make up momentum. And those are the 4 key pillars to trading, because that's how you can start building a trading plan around what's happening in price in the live auction. So, all right, that's going to do it for the ancillary TA. The extra bit of TA on the end there. Now, I do want to take a look and see if anybody has any questions for me. I'm going to be doing more Discord voice chats, so I do suggest that if you are interested in asking me questions that you might not be able to ask me here, you're afraid to ask here, that you ask in the communities while I am doing the voice chats for Pepe Ordinals Maxi, or which is going to be Thursdays at 1:30 p.m. Eastern. You can reference the event at the very top of the server underneath the banner. There is the event there. Will tell you in your local time zone what time that would be. But that's 1:30 every Thursday. We might even add some extra days. I don't know. I'm going to talk to them as I get some more free time and adjust my schedule a bit. But also, New Bitcoin Order, I will be doing some of that same thing there. And, just a different day for, open it up, do some TA, answer some questions, and just generally try to help people understand what's going on in the markets, or just understand different aspects of trading and analysis. So there's going to be more events like that coming up in the Discord communities. I would like to see if Sigma is interested in that too. I know that they've mentioned that they might be. As I do think it provides value. It's a way for me to provide value to the communities that I love, and then also, get those communities to interact with each other as well, because as one, we can then, push forward with those awesome projects that are going on there. Nat Monkeys as well. We don't want to forget about them. They come out in force all the time. So, let's see if anybody's got any questions before I move on to the next items here, which is going to be runes. We're going to take a look at a little bit of rune analysis because there has been some significant things that have occurred on the charts for runes as well. Let me go ahead and head over to YouTube and check the chats here. All right, so trading all. Hello. Oh, that must be Hanky. All right, how you doing, buddy? We've got Bobby. Hello. And then we have somebody that I cannot pronounce your name because that is not in a language that I understand. Um, we've got me. We've got Cheryl. Hi, Cheryl. Good to see you. Let's see. We've got that's pretty much all the people that are talking right now. I don't know if anyone else is chatting in any of the other chats here. No, I guess not. And I know that on X, it's very difficult. I don't know what's going on with chat there. I can chat, many other people can chat, but people don't seem to like to chat there on the actual X streams. Typically, I mean, the spaces, everybody wants to hang out and come up. But when it comes to the actual live streams like this, nobody really is chatting in there, but there are quite a few of you in there right now. And I completely lost all of the access to my own chat on Twitch here. So, and I do see that there's quite a few of you in there. If you are on Twitch, I do suggest either going over to the X stream or the YouTube stream because I just don't. I don't have any kind of a following. I don't keep up or manage my Twitch page at all. It just automatically streams there. So I do suggest that that you head over to at minimum YouTube from there because that's directly in the link. And then of course for those of you that are keeping track of me on YouTube and Twitch, head over to x.com. It's at CryptoLandy and follow that account there as you will get the links right away to all of the various streams, Discord stuff, and of course Spaces events that I am involved in. Bobby says, and he fails to break out of the one spot, most likely leading to the low. 702, 786. Pick your favorite number. Go back to 618, retrace back up. Yep. Marching on. All right, Cheryl says, can I have a take? Oh, how's my son doing? He, yeah, so he's doing good. For those that may not know, my son is disabled um, and special needs. He has some pretty severe seizures, and he just had one the other night. So, but you know, he's doing well. After post seizure, it's a little bit of a thing. It's he kind of has to go through and recover. He unfortunately the tonic-clonic types of seizures that he has he has convulsive, kind of what you would consider grand mal seizures. So we have to sit there with a timer and emergency medicine to make sure that he doesn't go over 5 minutes. But yeah, he's doing well. He recovered just fine. Everything's going well in that regard. It's just something that he unfortunately has to deal with, and that we have to help him manage with medicines and other things like that. So, but yeah, he's doing well. Let's see. Let's go ahead and take a look at some runes here. Yeah. No, he's fine. I mean, this is the life that we've lived for a very long time with him. So this is not anything new, but when he does have those events happen, I'm usually not around. So that if I'm not around, that's one of the reasons why I'm not around, is because there's probably something going on where we have to assist him or just be with him while he recovers from what he's got going on with him. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at some runes here. And I appreciate the well wishes and the love. I always make sure to tell him how much you guys, those of you who know what's going on, are sending your love. And of course, whenever the microphone's on and he's around, he likes to come up and try to say hi to you guys as well. So we have a nice reclaim and consolidation. One of the things on dog that I was looking for was, it's in a wider zone. And one of the reasons why I was looking at this wider zone um, was because of volume. So we saw the biggest pocket of volume come in right here on this candle in the mid zone, ahead of putting in the lows. Once this candle wick low is lost at around 0.229 cents or 2229, it's 222. No, it's 0.0229. So basically 0.0023. Once it lost this higher volume low, it made a lower low, but it didn't make it on like significant volume. It made it on the aggregate volume as it broke down, and then it spiked right back and put in a high volume high. So we have a reaccumulation zone basically between the primary area that it needed to recover, which was this entire candle, between 0.00223 basically to the high side structure right around 0.0027 to 0.0028 cents. Now, it even swung and deviated its low side structure. We called this out the last time that we talked about it. Came back up and tried to get back into the reaccumulation zone. It has done so. You can see how it played around with that high. Came back down significantly higher than its prior areas relative to the downtrend. Shot right back to the upside and even found that higher volume candle area as support on a close open, which it had previously just deviated and then kind of rejected around. Found support on it and is now trying to push up. Now, to be fair, it has found some significant resistance here around the 0.031 area, 0.00309 or so by the upper second. This is low term time frame though, but we have a structural change and that has bled over. Excuse me, sorry about your ears. That has bled over into the 4-hour time frame. So we had the downtrend. This high here was the high to break. Put in a higher low, higher high. Now it did get into a bit of a downtrend here with a higher low, lower high, lower low, but this was a consolidation. This is what we want to see in this zone. It now has broken that, and it has not confirmed a 4-hour higher high just yet. So we do need to see it close here or higher and get re-expansion. So we had the downtrend, we had the rejections at the upper first, but it held the basis to lower first, started moving back above the upper first and second. Mean revert, found support where at the lower first. That is what you want to see when you have a trend shift in play, and it is making headway into that overhead resistance and then finding support within it. You're looking at the potential for a support resistance flip. Came back up, tested the highs around the upper second, and now is moving above it. We need to see a closure above here to start targeting somewhere around this green line up here, which is it's 0.00369 cents. Now, if it can break out above there, I would raise targets eventually to around 0.037 to 0.038 cents. That would look pretty good for a structural change. That would also look pretty damn good on the daily for dog, as that would begin to break that daily downtrending wick high. Now, another coin that's doing very well today is RuneCoin. And RuneCoin actually looks very strong right now because its structure was, to be fair, in lower low territory relative to many other coins. It was getting quite the drawdown, but quite the bounce back. In this case, we saw the downtrend here. We saw the low put in. We saw a lower high that didn't confirm and has shifted now to a possible higher low and breaking out above, about 0.94 to 95 cents. And it's possible that this is going to go push a penny again. So it's got to get above this order block zone above here where it has started to wick into this order block candle, but you got to take it wick to wick. And then we can start looking at, a penny and above for RuneCoin. probably in the near future if it can maintain expansion. Let's see. It is looking for expansion just like dog. If it closes anywhere here or higher, above 0.009 cents or so, we're looking for expansion, especially above 0.094 to 95 cents. So this is looking very good. It's also getting it's also getting above this order block area and has just now wicked into this consolidation zone prior to the breakdown. Looking good. Above there, we're looking for a penny to about 1.2 to 1.3 cents. That's the next big area. And of course, this is going to coincide with where we see this order block coming in on the daily. This is something now that I will mark because this is, probably around a penny. It's going to find some short-term resistance at minimum. If it starts blasting off through there, then we can be looking significantly higher. Nice move that we've seen so far on both of these large cap rune coins. So these are the large cap runes. You might be looking at the 17% on Satoshi there. Give me just a second. I'm going to show you why that isn't the greatest look just yet. It's a good or encouraging look, but it's not like it's in some kind of breakout. Nice move up, though. All right, let's go ahead and also, yeah, this is going to be it for the daily because this is going to be daily. Let's go look at the 4 hour. Yeah, and that's going to be the bulk of the low that it's testing into right now. Perfect. So above, 0.98, we're looking at a penny. And this is going to, closes anywhere here or higher in the next 4 hour candle. We're looking for this thing to continue up to a penny and beyond. To high side, we want to see 1.2 cents taken out. Low side, the wick low over here was holding price down, and that was about 0.009 cents. So just under a penny, needs to hold around 0.009. Just over a penny, you want to see it start trading back up to 1.2 to 1.3 cents and above to really start running. Satoshi is in its accumulation zone now. It's not really doing much. It had a big old zone here that it was playing in. It is starting to look like it wants to test the top side of that zone towards, 138 to 140. If it can recover above there, we're looking to about 160 to 165. If it can start pushing around 167 to 170, then, it's looking good. But it's got to get above 160 to 165 and recover this low side structure up here. And then we can see it start pushing to, the 170 area, possibly up to, 180 to $2. It's a pretty quick move. Very volatile because of the lower volume that is on it. And it can kind of rip through some of those higher term time frame areas because volatility to the downside was so big. The snapback is going to be just as big in many cases. On the 4 hour, closures above 104, looking good. So continued upside for this. In the 4 hour, could it, slow down a little bit here on the hourly? Yes, you want to see it maintaining closures above about 115 on the hourly. And then really start pushing towards that 135 to 140 zone. But this is a wider reaccumulation that's happening right now. If it starts to break out above, then it's looking pretty good. Same for Wanko Manko here. We're looking at, this might actually hang out and do a little bit more accumulation. We need to see it closing above 18 and especially 20 cents to really start moving aggressively to the upside. And we need to see it holding kind of the area that we already have identified here. And that's going to be around, 11 to 13.5 cents. On the daily, this could, this is already looking like a low being set. You call this this is still a swing lower low. Didn't really close any kind of a low structure here. So this was kind of just a high structure into a low structure. Could this be a higher low? You could look at it that way. It's just really not enough history. But above 19 to 20 cents, on the daily, you're looking somewhere around 25 on the high to 30. And then possibly above there, you're looking 35 to 40 cents, maybe more up to those 50s and 60s. But as long as it's hanging out above, 13.5 especially, it's looking pretty good for continuation to test higher at minimum. Those are going to be that's kind of the bulk of what I'm going to be looking for here on runes. Not too much more to be had or said regarding that until we get some more listings, maybe on some bigger exchanges, and we can start looking at volume that's happening on some of those bigger exchanges. So that will be the next thing to kind of move on to there. All right. I did get one request to look at a coin, and that was Render. I believe, right? Render? Let me just make sure. Yeah, it was Render. So we've got, I believe, where was I looking at this? Coinbase, or probably going to look at, I think that this was RNDR though, right? If I remember correctly. Yeah, it's the same chart. Okay, so we were looking at this prior. This is, a nice double bottom. Held these lows over here at about 690. The last time we were looking at this was a big one to pay attention to. And we were looking at the weekly, I believe, from the actual prior move up here. It had topped out at the 1618, held the 1272. Looks good as long as it's holding that structure. And then locally, we're looking at probably, some, as long as it's holding the wick lows here of this particular swing, it's looking fine. 191, it's playing around the 618. If it can trade back above the 786 at about 1197, $12, it's going to start looking good. But this is a daily compression. You can see as long as it's holding the basis, looking good. It could dip down to the lower first. Preferably, you want to see it holding around the 50% of this range, which was the last lower high. And you want to see that area flipped. Could it dig down in there to around the $9 region? Sure. Preferably, though, you want to see 931 held on any kind of a move down. And you want to see bands start to compress up into its current range. It's trying to set a low today, though. So this would be encouraging, especially if it can close above 1063, but it still needs to take out at minimum 1080 to go and test somewhere around the highs, around 11 to 1115. And then subsequently the close open at 1125 to the actual wick high somewhere around 1160. You need to see that $12 region start to break. We've been watching this kind of pin out and then go into a downtrend since hitting, upper 11s to $12 region. If you start to see that area break, of course, being above the highs, 1160, look for it to start closing above the upper second and get expansion back to its structural high here, which would be around that 1266 to 13, almost $14 up here, coming in at 1383. Above there, looking around 17, $18. I would give it some room. Probably going to see resistance at 15. There's probably some other fibs that could be drawn to kind of define that. And in fact, yeah, this looks good. Not too worried about this. Looks good. And we do see upper third on the weekly, upper second is right here at the highs. Yeah, it needs to recover around $11 to go test 12. At least deeper half of the $11 region to 12 from the weekly standpoint. And then 12.5 to the highs there at 13, almost $14. Then you're looking probably 15. You probably see a pit stop, profit taking at minimum. And then 1272 is coming in at 17 to the 1414 at about $20. It's 19, but I would call it 20 even. And this was where we had identified the turnaround, if you remember correctly. Beautiful area to get in if you were late off the lows here. Wow, it's been a long time since we talked about this. Bear market is where we last talked about this. Holy crap. And then nice breakdown into support, retest the lows, accumulation structure, breakout, retest as support. Beautiful area to buy on confirmation of those lows being set. So right now looks good. And in the context of where things could go, yeah, 1272 about 20 to $25 by the 1414 if you're looking more long term. Looks good. But anything below $8 is big problems. This thing's going to come down hard, like very, very hard. Back to like $4. It's, you're looking at a pretty massive drawdown of more than 50%. Hope that helps. All right, I think that's going to do it for me today. I do appreciate everybody that has been hanging out as Bitcoin pushes into the prior cycle all-time high at $69,000. Nice. I will leave you with a piece of advice, and that would be aware of the lower term time frame pullbacks and the areas that Bitcoin pulls back to. As long as Bitcoin is maintaining above 66,000, it's very, very strong. If it starts to push above or push down below, need to watch $65,000. You want to see it holding around there. And then above $70,000, we're looking for the highs and higher. So maybe not immediately. Shorter term time frame pullbacks are okay. This is a structure change on the daily. So finding resistance where it's currently finding resistance is perfectly normal. Even if it puts on a high, you need to see $65,000, $66,000 maintaining. Otherwise, it's going to be a little bit more for immediate continuation to the upside, in my opinion. Obviously, more aggressive on the more aggressive end of that, around $67,000 for immediate lower term time frame continuation. If it starts to drop that, then you're looking 65 to 66. But it is turning the structure around. So unless it just, God kindles its way up to the highs, it might take some time. So let it take its time. We see the bullish shift is occurring across all major time frames and starting to look really, really good for the bulls. So I'm going to leave you with that. I will have a recorded video tomorrow following up with some of the things that we talked about in the live stream today. And maybe even a Discord event. We'll see. I'm trying to figure out some times, maybe tomorrow, for a Discord event in one of the servers. And then, of course, if you are interested, I will be doing a Discord event in the Pepe Ordinals Maxi server this Thursday at 1:30 p.m. Eastern. If you are in the server or in one of the Discord servers with me and I share the event, it will be in your local time zone when I share the event, so you can see what that would be in your local time zone. All right. You have a wonderful morning, afternoon, and evening. No matter where you are in the world, please trade safe. And of course, as always, stay safe. With all of that said, Landy out.